Welcome to the Perfect Pairing Podcast. The cigar of the week this week is my own creation with a couple collaborators, but it is the Onward Dreams Middleweight Champ. This is a cigar that we recently came out with, so if you're in the Perfect Pairing Club, you guys got to try it and be one of the first people in the world to try this cigar.
But before we get to all that, my name is Chris, in case you don't know who Adam and I are, and I am the whiskey expert and the cigar noob.
And I'm Adam, and I'm the cigar expert, but the whiskey noob.
And as Adam mentioned, today we are finding the perfect pairing for his own creation, this Onward Dreams cigar. What size is this, Adam, actually?
This is a torpedo, so it's a 6.25 by 56.
Okay.
So it's a decent sized cigar. It's something that, when you talk about like the middleweight champ, people always are like, it doesn't look like a middleweight champ. He looks like he gained some weight. That he's not cutting down on his weight right now. I'm like, no. It's really about the flavor and the body. So the body is
Right.
middleweight. So do we have a lightweight and a heavyweight coming? We'll have to see. But yeah, it's a 6.25 by 56. So it's a decent sized cigar, but we love the torpedo size. So that's what we went with.
So torpedo isn't just the tip; it's also the size of the cigar. Like that's like a fixed, like Toro almost.
No, torpedo.
Okay.
I mean, in general, yes. Like a really short, pointy cigar is called a bellicoso.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
so there's different. I don't know. I mean, there used to be rules. Now it's kind of like not really. Like people
Yeah.
name. I think next week we have a cigar where it's like, okay, what size is it? And it's like, well, we used the Spanish name of the size that it could be, and it's like, well, I don't know what that means. Like,
Right.
so I don't know. I guess I should have put Onward Dreams Middleweight Champ Torpedo, but we only have one size of this cigar. So also, like, if you find the Onward Dreams Middleweight Champ, this is the only one right now. So
Right. Right.
we will have some more sizes in the future, but for now, this is what it is. It's a beautiful sun-grown Havana seed wrapper. I do believe it's medium bodied all the way through. My favorite part of this cigar is right now. Right when you light up, I feel like you can tell the flavors are so different. And I gotta be honest, this is not just me tooting my horn. This cigar was created by JC Newman. So for everybody out there in the cigar world, you know JC Newman. You know how reputable they are. They make the best cigars in the world, and we worked with them to create this specific cigar right here. So don't just take my word for it and be like, yeah, of course he's talking it up. JC Newman promotes this cigar as well. So, yeah, it
Well,
is good.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you expected this going into it based on the cigars that I've told you I liked before, but this is right there in my wheelhouse, dude. This medium body, some of that milk chocolatey notes, not too much spice or anything like that, but enough to keep you interested. This is like right in that realm that I typically like for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean like the first taste again, I think is like it's what I would highlight specifically about this cigar. So many people that I've just hung around with, like family members that I've let try it, before we released it and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They've had some of the other stuff. Like the Rodman was really good, but in my opinion, the second third of the Dennis Rodman cigar that we created was the best part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I loved the flavor initially. I liked the whole thing, obviously, or otherwise I wouldn't have come out with the cigar. But like this one, it's like you light it and you're like, hold up, that is different between any
Yeah.
other cigar you've ever had. And like even my brother who doesn't smoke cigars really smoked and was like, whoa, what is that? Like he
Mm-hmm.
had no idea what tasting note to find or flavor or anything. He's like, I can't tell you anything that it is, but I can tell you you've forced cigars upon me before, and I haven't really enjoyed it. And this one seems to be better.
Well, yeah, actually. So, okay, let's just jump right into the noob review because I want to build off of that. So, this Onward Dreams Middleweight Champ that I'm smoking, it totally jumps out at you with flavor. Like you don't get, I think, like you're saying, when you first light it up, you don't get as much of the tobacco burn. It's a lot more of the flavors of the tobacco. Kind of like a whiskey that doesn't have too much of an alcohol burn. You taste the body a bit more. That's how this is, and I think that's what I'm really enjoying about it. A lot of a chocolate, like a milk chocolate, not a super dark cocoa. A little bit of a woodiness. So far, really enjoying it.
The one note that I've always gotten out of it that you didn't mention is leather.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's it's not like a oily leatherness that you may get out of like an oscuro cigar, but like it's still a leather note that I get every time.
Funny enough, and this is the honest truth, I know people listening might not believe me, but I was actually thinking leather, but I'm like, well, I'm used to this seems too light. This looks visually too light for me to say leather. So I was like, maybe I'm reaching with that one, but I'm glad that you said that because I was.
So you lied on your noob review. Great.
I didn't lie.
The whole thing. I'm just kidding.
I didn't lie. I didn't have the full confidence yet. I was like, I need a couple more puffs before I go that far, you know?
And that's the definition of a noob review.
Fair.
Not tasting notes in a whiskey, I'll be very vague.
right. This one tastes like whiskey, kind of.
It's almost like, a bourbon, but it's a little more of a whiskey than a bourbon.
A little bit of a rye, maybe it's just like a little dance with a rye.
Hint of rye, that Irish stuff, and single malt, all combined.
Hey, speaking of which, we've got today's trivia question, which ironically doesn't have to do with anything that we're drinking here today, but we are drinking a scotch, which made me think of this trivia question because this blew my mind the first time that I learned it. So a very common scotch whiskey, I don't believe we've had it on here, is Laphroaig. It's an Islay scotch, very peaty, very smoky, and very common. A lot of people like it. So the question is simple. What does the name Laphroaig mean? The name of the scotch Laphroaig. I believe it's a Gaelic word, if I'm not mistaken, and the meaning behind it, I totally did not see coming the first time that I found out about it. So
okay, I thought you were about to be like, I don't really know what it means, but what does it mean? Because you were like, I don't really know if it's comes from here or there, or I don't really know what it means, but like that's the question.
Yeah, no, I know what it means. Okay, it is Gaelic. I just didn't know that for sure. My assumption, anytime it's a Scotch whiskey, is that it's Gaelic, but I was like, maybe I'm wrong about that. I
don't know. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I'm ready to dive into pairing number one because I think with this cigar, I definitely haven't had any of these pairings today, so I wanted to be, because I've had this blend so many times, specific cigar, I didn't want to have any pairings before this, so I, could have a little bit of reaction and not be like, another day at the office.
Right.
This is great.
No, I feel you. Our first pairing here for those listening is the Dalmore 12-year. So this is a single malt Scotch whiskey, but this is not from Islay like Laphroaig that we were just talking about. This is from the Highland region, which doesn't typically, they can, but it doesn't typically have that peaty smoke to it. And usually they're a little bit lighter, a little bit more of that malty kind of sweet flavor. And this is I would say a slightly higher end with Scotch is a really hard word to use because Scotch can get very, very, very expensive. But this is like higher end for me, is what I guess I'm gonna say. Like this is like an $80 bottle in my area. But it's pretty tasty. I have said before about this Scotch, I absolutely love the flavor profile. I just wish it was a little bit higher strength for the price because it's only 80 proof. So take what you will with it, but I do really enjoy the flavor of it.
Yeah, I just took my first sip. I haven't had this actually at all. For those of you out there, I've never had this specific, the Dalmore 12-year. They have some other expressions. Like there's a really common one that's 8 maybe?
I'll have to look that up, to be honest with you. I do not know off the top of my head. My Scotch knowledge is not as much as my bourbon knowledge.
No, that's fine. There's one I had at a cigar lounge a couple times, but I just called it the Dalmore. I didn't,
Right.
That was my whiskey extent. I'm the whiskey noob, guys. Remember, and I knew they only had one expression up there on the shelf, so I said, "Can I have the Dalmore, please?" And they knew exactly what I was talking about. So, but off the bat, like, not knowing the ABV, I noticed it right there at the end when you were talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is really approachable for a Scotch, which I
Yes.
remember the Dalmore being, whatever one I had, the Dalmore being, but I felt a little bit more peat to it in like flavor, but not in like burn. Does that
Okay.
make any sense?
It does, but here's the caveat there, and this is a very common thing that happens. If I'm not mistaken, this has no peat at all. Like it's not peated at all. I'll have to
Oh,
Google that to be sure. But you're not crazy because here's what happens. If you drink peated scotch, when you move to unpeated scotch, some scotches have a funkiness to them that those peated scotches also have. And it gets translated, especially by your brain because of association, it gets translated as a peat funk. Sometimes monkey shoulder has that same thing for me where I'm like, this kind of tastes peaty, but it's not. So it's kind of a malty funk that happens. And it's like you're totally, a lot of people do that same exact thing. Actually, it's not uncommon at all. I've done it before with scotches on Whiskey Noobs. I've been like, yeah, it's got like a peatiness to it. And I looked it up and it wasn't peated at all. And I was like, oh, okay.
okay.
So,
I got a little sidetracked. I'm not gonna lie, but I
no
do.
worries.
I got your message. Um, when you go from the Dalmore to this Onward Dreams Middleweight Champ, the Middleweight Champ has this like light, bright flavor profile that really throws me off. It keeps that medium. You see that what I'm saying? Some medium body
Yeah.
to it, but I don't want to call it hay. Like bright is exactly the way I would describe it. Like when you go from that Dalmar straight to the middleweight champ, like quickly, almost with a little bit of that Dalmar single malt on your palate still, the middleweight champ sits there and just goes super bright, and all of that, like the leather's gone, it brightens that cigar. Like
What,
what a
like huge, big time. Like
yeah.
I actually almost let it go out by accident because I was talking about the whiskey so much. So when you said that, I immediately picked it up. I hadn't puffed it yet. That's like almost Connecticut level bright. Like that might be the most that a cigar has just totally changed due to the whiskey that we're pairing it with. That was wild.
And I love that because talk about a pairing that you would never think something like that would happen. When
Mm-hmm.
in like if you just go to the typical world, somebody says, "Yeah, let's pair this scotch with this medium-bodied cigar." The scotch is going to help the cigar be lighter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Never would you say that
That is
in a million years.
right. Like
It's an oxymoron. It doesn't make any sense.
yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm like dumbfounded here because I'm trying to think of what this note is that I'm getting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, here's what I'm gonna just talk it out because that helps. So the Dalmore has that maltiness that you noticed, which this isn't like that because that's more of a funk. It has a little bit of a citrus and a little bit of a honey. And I'm not saying the cigar tastes like citrus because that'd be really weird, but it moves in that direction. And I can almost say it almost has a honey taste to it. There's definitely more than that going on, but that's just the part that I'm able to pick out from the scotch, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. But going away from the middleweight champ for a second and going back to the Dalmor, that is definitely honey.
Mm-hmm.
I see what you're talking about there. I didn't get it right off the bat. I think it's because my palate was trying to figure out what that peaty funk was going on. Like,
Yeah.
is this just burn or is this some sort of flavor? And I feel like it is more flavor profile than just a burn um, that's in there. And maybe that's just single malt. Maybe it's,
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting like we talk about it's bourbony, right? It's just
Right.
single malty. Like am I
Mm-hmm.
right about that or is that just in left field?
No, that's absolutely spot on, man. Like malty is a very common. Sometimes even the manufacturers, the distillers, will have that in their flavor notes, like malty, because it is a flavor for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Ooh.
Then this is a malty scotch.
Yeah,
That's light.
this is one of those pairings where we probably could have been silent for like 10 minutes. This is blowing my mind.
Oh yeah. If you guys happen to have this experience in a cigar lounge, which by the way, no, you can't find Onward Dreams if you guys are curious in cigar lounges right now. but we do sell them on our website in 3-packs. So in case you're missing the ticker below, which guys, yeah, we do release little hints in there every once in a while. We do now sell all past Cigar of the Weeks in 3-packs on the website shopdreamercigars.com as well. So if you loved one of them, we sent out an email to all of you guys in the Perfect Pairing Club trying to ask what you wanted, and a couple of you said, I want to know where to buy more. Now you can buy them from us. So makes it really easy, and we get to take all your money. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Just another way. No. Dude, so here's I just went back to the Dalmore, and here's the last thing that I'm going to say about it, because I don't want to just sit here and talk about how mind blown I am. The other thing that I really enjoy about this pairing is when I went back to the Dalmore from the Onward cigar, I noticed it's like the body of the Scotch was improved a little bit. Some of the intricacies, some of the complexity got muted a little bit. But the notes that were there were a little bit bolder because, as I mentioned, this is a little bit weak of a whiskey for me. So it felt like it had a little bit more body, almost like the cigar got so lightened that the body of the whiskey got a little bit bolder. It had like a little bit of room to breathe.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. I'm just intrigued to keep going because I'm like, okay, now what is this Onward Dreams going to do? Like, I created this cigar. I thought I knew what it was going to do. Like,
yeah,
I got to go. I don't think I've mentioned him yet. We created this cigar with DJ Walton. If you go on Instagram, he's at Onward Nation, but he owns a boxing apparel brand called Onward, and Onward is his whole kind of thing, just like Dreamer is my whole kind of thing. So we collaborated, and his logo is the arrows that you guys see in the middle, and then you see the Dreamer Cigars wings around it. But shout out to DJ too, because he was absolutely 100% involved in this blend as well. We smoked these together. We smoked different samples together, trying to figure out what we wanted, and this is the one we came up with. So I know he's gonna watch this podcast and be like, I need to go find me some Dalmore.
Yeah.
12 you're like, I need to go find it.
No joke. That was wild. That makes me really excited to see what happens with our next two. So the next pairing I'm excited to try because I've never had it before. We've got Rare Stash Bourbon, and this is a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys, 91 proof, and that's all the information that I know about it because this is the first time that I'm having it. I can't wait to give it a try, though.
I mean, one more thing.
That is true. The one sport that I actually do enjoy sometimes. Okay, so explain to us all how he is involved in this company. Like, is he the founder, the owner? How's that work?
So from my understanding, Dustin Poirier is who Chris is mentioning. This is Dustin Poirier's whiskey. Mm-hmm. From my understanding, he is owner and a part of and founder of Rare Stash. That is my understanding. I haven't done a whole lot of research on it myself. DJ, so the guy that we made this cigar with, he is very involved in obviously the boxing world, the fight world, and him and Dustin have known each other for a little bit. So that's why we got it on here today to see if the middleweight champ matches with a guy who was fighting for a belt a couple weeks ago, and there's rumors that he's gonna fight one last fight. We'll see if he retires, but. Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about this whiskey either, so I'm excited to see how they match up, mano y mano, Duke.
Absolutely, that's kind of a fun matchup.
How many boxing and fighting puns can we make in one pairing?
Mm-hmm. Ooh. Okay, this one's interesting. I need to take a couple more sips because I got to get some of the cigar off my palate. Because once again, I've never had this before.
Fair enough.
So far, this is interesting because it's a little bit on the lighter side and still pretty sweet. So, like a lot of times with a bourbon, it's kind of like cigars. You get that deep, dark barrel characteristic, just like a dark cigar. You get that sugar with it, kind of. And right now, I'm getting kind of a sugary flavor with this lighter palate as well.
Gotcha. One thing I do know that I'll note, I don't know all the details, but I can whiskey noob it up a little bit. Rare Stash, it's called Rare Stash because they come out with a different stash every year. So it's like a different, I don't want to call it blend, but that's what I would say like in the cigar world. At least maybe a different uh, production line. I don't know what it's called in the whiskey world, but
Probably
I don't
batch, if I had to guess.
batch. Yeah, it's probably batch. Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the word I was looking for because I wasn't gonna say barrel. I was like, I don't. They sell a lot of these, so I don't think it's just one barrel
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
that they come out with every year. But yeah, like that's the whole point of Rare Stash is like every year they're coming out with a stash that you can't even get anymore because it's never gonna be made again. So that's the concept behind the name. So and that's what makes it a little fun in terms of trying to collect like the different years and trying to figure out how like what's the difference between Rare Stash 23 and Rare Stash 24 and 22 and I don't know how long they've existed, but on and on and on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I totally know what you mean. I I actually wish I should have tried some of this before I had the cigar in my palate. But so far, I'm pretty impressed by this Rare Stash. I expected it to be a little bit more, let's say, basic flavored, because a lot of times when you have a celebrity involved, they shoot for approachable, and that's it. This actually has a lot of complexity to it. I'm trying to figure out what it is. Like I said, I wish I hadn't puffed the cigar yet so I could get a little bit more into it, but maybe like a dark fruit, and you still have that bourbon baseline and a little bit of spice too. Definitely more complex than I'd expected coming out of the gate.
Now, when I go to the cigar, I'm getting that same dark fruit flavor though. I know you're still
Ooh.
trying to experiment on the whiskey and really understand it, so that's fine. But when I go back to the cigar, I think the depth comes right back into the cigar and almost does the exact opposite. Like it gives you that kind of deep, like that leather comes back in, and then it has that dark fruit as well. So but it feels like a little bit more leaning towards heavier now than lighter, um, which honestly, like sorry about that. Smoking this cigar so many times as I have, and trying to just master it and make sure that it's as great as we can make it. And obviously, you make your own cigar, you're gonna have it a lot. Is I've noticed that it is very versatile. Like there's times where I feel like the heat outside affects it. Like we went down to Tampa to JC Newman Cigar Factory and had a bunch of these and did a bunch of filming and I felt like it smoked different than I was just in a climate controlled environment. Like it was super interesting, but that's kind of what I like about it. It's almost like the Rare Stash. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
very unique.
Definitely. I'm just getting into the cigar, so I can't speak to the pairing yet. I think I've nailed down the Rare Stash, what it is that I'm enjoying about it. It has a really good balance of the spicy with the sweet, which is something I love in a bourbon. Like that's a personal preference type thing. You get the sweetness, which a lot of people look for, but that can get boring to people who want something a little bit more enticing. And then you get the spice with it, which is what I like, because then it kind of grabs you. And I think that's what I'm really enjoying about it is you have enough barrel characteristic to be interesting, but not enough that that's the whole palate. You've also got that kind of dark fruit with it. So I'm actually very impressed by it, more than I expected to be totally transparent with you guys. That was really tasty. I wonder how much it retails for. You don't happen to know, do you?
I don't. I don't know
I'll look
that
that up.
one. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know that one. But what I do know is I'm gonna go ahead and toot JC Newman's horn because this ash is holding so well. Crazy enough, I have had some really long ashes with this cigar because I mean honestly when you're sampling like when so you guys can see a little insight on the cigar side for us like when we're creating a cigar like we it's almost like if it doesn't even get to this point it's not even an option like because we need to make sure construction's number one. We talk about it, how many times does the draw ruin a cigar completely. We could have made this bold, beautiful, flavorful cigar, but if it's rolled improperly and it's too tight, you guys will never enjoy it. Like nobody will ever get to experience flavors because you're gonna feel like you're drinking a milkshake out of a paper straw, and you're gonna throw it away just like you would a milkshake with a paper straw. That's
Mm-hmm.
it's my analogy all the time with like, oh, what do you do when a cigar has a bad draw? I'm like, well, go to the next because
Mm-hmm.
that's just it'll ruin it. There are ways that you can kind of fix it a little. I do not recommend smashing it and rolling it around in your hand too much. Um, a little bit of that if you find a knot. Like it sounds weird, but there's sometimes, the roller, these are all handmade. So like if you squeeze it a little and, turn it around and you find a knot, you can work that knot a little bit and let the air flow out, but not that much without damaging the cigar.
I appreciate that monologue. It gave me some time to figure out exactly what the heck was going on with this pairing.
You got it.
So I'm with you. The cigar is back to middleweight. It is back to even a touch more of the leather, almost like a little bit more of that boldness coming through. The whiskey is like maple syrup, like sugary, either maple syrup or brown sugar syrup with just a touch of that dark fruit. It's like become very sweet on the palate. And weirdly enough, you can almost still feel that spice. Like you can feel that tingle, not necessarily burn, but like that tingle that a spice would give you. But you don't taste it as much. It's more so like this sweet, syrupy flavor. So when I was talking about the whiskey, if you were listening to that and you were like, oh, I'm not with you, Chris. I don't like that spicy. I like sweet. Put it with the cigar. It's turned into one of those like real sweet bourbons where it's just like sugary, almost more like I said, brown sugary. And then that cigar became a little bit more leathery. So another really interesting interaction, actually. Like I would say this one's more so on the whiskey changing than the cigar changing. But that cigar definitely got a little bit more towards that bold leather flavor.
Yep. I was slow playing the pairing to let you just figure that, like to see it. But yeah,
I appreciate that.
right when I went back to the whiskey, I was like, okay, because the Dalmore was good. Now I'm like, and this third one's gonna toss everybody for a loop. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I already know that it's just the whole thing is gonna be thrown out the back, and then all of a sudden we're gonna have to figure out in less than probably 5 minutes what our rankings are, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, this is going to be another tough one, I think. I'm really excited to see what happens with this third pairing.
See, you guys at home, you guys get to take the card that we send you in the Perfect Pairing Club and pick your pairing and take your time. We don't have that luxury here because if we took an hour and a half, you guys wouldn't. It's really hard. Time yourself. Be like, all right, I have 5 minutes to figure out if I like this pairing and what rating it is. Like, it's so hard.
I like that idea. Take your pairing card, sit down, and start a timer. And think that this pairing card is going to be viewed by a whole bunch of people who are going to judge whether or not you're right. And see how long it takes to do that.
Exactly. And judge you and be like, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. It's the first time I've had this pairing. I'm just trying to be authentic. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. No, I appreciate you letting me take my time. I could tell you were, and I'm like, you could tell I was excited by that new whiskey, and so you actually let me take my time with it, which was very helpful.
I mean, like the other side is I always appreciate a good plug. I mean, I like plugging every cigar of the week, but this one's a little near and dear to my heart. Of course, only the second custom cigar I've ever released after the Dennis Rodman cigar, which those are running out for everybody out there. Very, very low. There's some 3-packs that are still available, some signed boxes, very few signed boxes that are still available. So grab them while you can. Maybe even by the time this podcast comes out, they may be gone. But yeah, I'll always take a good plug on this cigar. I mean, I'm so proud of it. Like the burn line is good. I mean, again, like I can toot my own horn as much as I want, but it's JC Newman. JC Newman crafted this cigar. I didn't roll it. I didn't come up with the entire blend. They led us all the way to the finish line and helped us through the entire process. Like while I'm learning to be a blender, like my plan is never to be really a master blender, but to work with the greatest cigar companies in the world to make sure it's great cigars. So that's what we had here.
So that sounds plugging. Kind of like, yeah. This will be more educational, I think, for the whiskey guys. It sounds to me kind of like sourcing your whiskey where some people will buy some of these barrels and some of these barrels and some of these barrels, and they're buying them from people who distilled them. They did the craftsmanship of it. And then you take it and say, okay, but how do I blend this together to make it taste the way that I specifically want it to taste? That's how some sourcing whiskey goes. Is that kind of a good analogy?
Yeah, in a way, definitely with the. I guess I'll just go ahead and release it. The lightweight and heavyweight champ that we're gonna come out with. Those we blended from, like what they call fumas or puritos, single strands of tobacco. We had, I mean, like more than 12 different strands of tobaccos that we were tasting and blending that and figuring out and DJ and I JC Newman led us through the experience, but DJ and I ultimately came up with the blend. So those are going to be interesting. We have hopefully those will be out. I don't know if they'll make it by the end of the year, but hopefully we're hoping by, gift season, end of the year. Um, but I can tell you the samples of what we blended just imported into the United States, and we get to smoke them here in about a week. So
Mm.
I'm super excited to try. Like, okay, we blended these. Please not, don't be terrible. Like this, like I mean, you got like 5 strands of tobacco, and you're like, if you go to the Onward Dreams social media page, guys, on Instagram, you'll see like we've got like 6 different tobaccos, and we're like smoking them all at the same time because you really do get that blended
Mhm.
experience. So yeah,
That's cool.
enough plugging. Let's go straight into little tequila.
Absolutely. So, have you tried this yet, by the way?
I have.
Okay. So, pairing number 3 is Cazcanes Añejo Tequila. It says number 7 on the bottle. I don't know much about tequila, so I'll just tell you that. It's batch number A72304. I don't know with Cazcanes, I don't know if they have like small batches where each batch tastes a little different. So I wanted to share that with you guys. And this is my first ever time trying it. Wow. I really like that. I mean, it is I'm just learning about tequila, but one of the things I'm really liking about it is when it has a lime note, because that's kind of what I associate with tequila. So when it has that citrus behind it, I love it. And this has that citrus behind it, especially with the cigar. Like that almost comes through more after you puff the cigar a little bit.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, for me, and I'm a little bit more. Not that I'm a tequila expert in any way, but I drink a lot of tequila, or I have,
Mm-hmm.
um, in a lot of different varieties. What I love out of a tequila is not the lime note because I don't typically have like if I have a margarita, I'm like I'm drinking sugar. I'm not drinking. I don't even taste the tequila in a margarita typically,
Mm-hmm.
um, unless I pour it. Then
I was gonna
heavy-handed.
say you just haven't had a properly made margarita.
Yeah, fair enough. Down here in Atlanta, there's some good Mexican restaurants that know how to make a good tequila. You got to find a little
Mm.
hole in the walls, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
"Yeah, you having a good day? It's a good day." They're just pouring the tequila. And yep. Mm-hmm. About to
Right.
have a better day. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Um, but what I like about it is the complexity of the tequila. Like, if you don't know tequila and you taste this tequila, you will be mind blown. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like what I think you experienced for the first time with the Cierto tequila, that
Mm-hmm.
extra añejo. You were like, whoa, 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 okay. This is like, there's a new league. And I don't think that really exists in like the bourbon world or even the cigar world. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
tequila is the most polarizing product that I know in like the spirits world, um, or the luxury goods world, I guess you could say, in consumables. I don't know, but like where you can have like a shooter tequila where if you're sipping it, like it's gonna be really tough. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
then you have something like this, and you're like, holy crap, Cascanes, man, they know what they're doing. Like that, like that was not tequila. That's not the tequila I know. Like,
Yes.
and that's why when I tell people tequila pairs so well with cigars, this is what I'm talking about right here.
100%, dude. This and the Cierto have both been to where I'm like, that does not taste like what I thought tequila tasted like. Like it's better for sure. um, it's almost like you have it with whiskey or with bourbon, just a tiny bit, but it's only like really, really low shelf whiskey is where you see that divide suddenly. Like if you get sub $10, suddenly it's like this does not taste like the same thing as a $20 bottle. These taste like different things. That's how different this is from the tequilas that I've had traditionally up to this point. Totally different flavor. You mentioned the complexity. I don't know my tequila kind of flavor wheel nearly as well as I know whiskey, but I would say it's got more of this. I've got it a couple times, kind of like a minerality, kind of like that smell when rain falls on limestone, like that type of a mineral type of a flavor. But with this, it's not so aggressive that it's bitter. It doesn't really set your tongue on edge at all or anything. It's just there as almost like a little zing. Now, I will jump to the cigar, and I'm curious what you think, because obviously you know the cigar better than I do. I think the cigar is getting more of a black pepper and a little bit of a salt note to it that kind of gives it like a zing, like not heat, not burn, but like almost what a sour candy does to your palate, where it makes you kind of salivate a little bit.
I'm definitely feeling the salivation. I don't feel a zing. What I want you to do is have the añejo and then go to the cigar decently quickly. Doesn't need to be like still directly on your palate, but then retrohale. I'm getting full Teddy Graham, like full. It's like a weird, like full. Now I'm like you, Chris.
Yes.
You have manipulated me. Now I'm talking about Teddy Grahams in a cigar,
Hey.
but that's what I'm getting when I go from the Cazcanes to the Onward Dreams Middleweight Champ. Right away, Teddy Graham on the retrohale. Really weird, but awesome. Like, what a great pairing. This is tough for me. I think this pairing, going away for a second from just like general tasting notes and flavors, they are gelling. The Onward Dreams Middleweight Champ and this Cazcanes are gelling. Like, they're just hanging out. There's not like too much going on either one. And like, it's not like, whoa, that flavor. It's just, hey man, like there's having a good time and they look like they've been best friends for years. Like that's what this pairing feels like to me. It's just very pleasant. It's just a pleasant pairing.
Yeah, dude, the Teddy Grahams was spot on. Literally, ironically enough, just yesterday I had animal crackers, so not quite the same, but similar, and that's 100%. And it almost really separates the retrohale from just on your tongue, because after you said that, I'm like, okay, but that Teddy Grahams is kind of the opposite of black pepper, right? And then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna not retrohale. I'm gonna do the chewing. I'm gonna kind of lip smack a little bit. And I kind of smacked my tongue, and then you get that salivation, that little bit of a...
It's in the back. The black pepper's in the back. Yeah, I see it now. I went backwards and I did that. Yeah, I see it.
It's wild, too, because it's like pretty different from what you get on the retrohale.
It is really weird. For those of you out there that are new in the cigar world and you're not retrohaling, I completely understand, because it does take a second. Please, like, if you didn't see the past episode where I kind of did a little education, just let a little smoke out of your mouth and then blow out of your nose. And it helps if you push the top of your tongue to the back of your top teeth, your tongue to the back of your top teeth, a little bit to make sure you don't inhale, because for anyone out there that's curious, you don't inhale cigars, in case you don't know that. I mean, if you're a first-time listener and you're just interested in this whole pairing thing, like, what's up with these guys in suits and that are smoking cigars and drinking whiskey? Like, well, one, you don't have to wear a suit. Chris and I are just chilling in t-shirts right now, you know?
Yeah, you've never seen us in suits if you've been watching this.
Right, like, majority of cigars I have are in shorts, and, like, now it's summertime, like, I'll be honest, like, probably got my shirt off. I'm like, because my little cigar lounge here I got off the back of my house is not air conditioned, so like it gets a little toasty in the summertime. So like I'm like, yeah, just gonna enjoy myself and watch a little TV and Netflix, smoke a cigar, and drink a little whiskey. Not a bad day.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I just went back through all three and I still don't have a ranking yet. So
okay, well, now's your time to filibust then, because I am going to go all the way back through. I will note, I did ash. I'm already building my second one. You got a decent little ash going on. Look at that burn line too. A little hump in it. I'm not gonna say that was user error, but
It would be a fair statement. Dude, I always light incorrectly, and I always forget to rotate to keep the burn line kind of even. I got too excited. These are exciting pairings this time around. So while I filibuster, let me talk about that. I'm going to explain what I'm tasting, and hopefully somewhere along the way, I'm going to figure out how I'm going to rank these things. So starting off with the Dalmore. The Dalmore with this cigar tastes amazing. However, it takes away some of what I love about the cigar. I like those deeper notes. I like that leather. So that was my number one at first. And then I tasted it again. And I'm like, well, hold on a minute. Because then you go to the Rare Stash. And the cigar takes away that little bit of spiciness that I liked in the Rare Stash. But the cigar tastes like the best version of itself for my palate. I'm like, oh, this is bold. This has that leather. I really enjoy that. And then you go to the Cazcanes, and maybe this is determining my rankings. It kind of has the best of both worlds a little bit. The problem being I don't drink tequila as much, so like I can't say, oh, this makes the tequila taste like a tequila that I like. What I do know is the tequila tastes sweet. You get a little bit of that citrus flavor. You still get some of that minerality, so it's still kind of complex. And the cigar tastes like the cigar, plus, as you mentioned, the teddygrams on that retrohale, the little bit of added black pepper on just the palate without retrohaling it. Maybe that's got to be my favorite, but it's hard for me. I'm going to have to try that one more time because I just don't know tequila enough to be like, oh, this is making the tequila taste the way that I like tequila to taste.
That's fair. If I go through my rankings, not the ratings, rankings, are you good with that?
Yes, go through it, and I'll decide on the way. All
right, so... Gosh, okay. I was so decided, and then I was like, wait, is this real? All right. Mm-hmm. I've got, for the Onward Dreams Middleweight Champ pairing rankings, I've got, at number 1, I've got the Rare Stash. At number 2, I've got the Dalmore 12-year single malt. And then last, I have the Cazcanes Tequila Añejo. And that's tough for me to say. And that's going to show in the ratings because I think it depends on the day. If I was out by the pool, honestly, it switches. It switches very dramatically. I'm going with this Cazcanes 100%. If I'm out by the pool and I've got my Onward Dreams Middleweight Champ and I'm just like enjoying like, hey, I created this cigar. This is really cool, and just, kind of reminiscing, and I'm going to have this Cazcanes, and because of their gel, and I love that I get that cigar flavor that I created, like that's what, that's what it is. But again, it came in third. So
I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit, but, and we're gonna keep saying this, people are gonna be like, I don't believe you. This is gonna be another tight one, man. This is gonna be another one of those that's just like, man, I like all three of these a lot. So I had in first, and I changed this just as I went to type it into the rating sheet. I was like, nope, I got to change it. In first place, I've got the Rare Stash. In second place, I've got the Cazcanes. And then in third place, I've got the Dalmore. The reason being, the Dalmore just took away the aspects of the cigar that I liked. Aside from that, it was an excellent pairing. And if you like that brighter palette, that's the pairing for you. For me, it just wasn't me. But the Rare Stash... Sorry. Was the opposite. No, you're good. It's just the Rare Stash was the opposite. It was like accentuating the parts of the pairing that I loved. So that's why I had to put that in first.
Yeah, no, that is the thought process that I went through as well. Honestly, the other side of it, flipping it over on its head, for me, typically, I'm cigar first. The Dalmore didn't play as much. Like, I do think it was complimentary. But like we said, we got that honey note out of it, but like there wasn't much going on over there. It was almost like, what can you do to the cigar? What can you do to the cigar? And then it was like, I'm trying, and then like, all right, what can you do to the whiskey? And the whiskey was like, no, like go back to the cigar. I was like, well, like that bright note was so incredible, like, and mind blowing, but then the pairing like together is why it got knocked down for me. Like the bright note was super. Flavorful. I would love to just be able to like click a button and have that flavor. Like that was super unique. But Yeah, I mean, when you talk about a pairing, I think that's why it took the hit for me. So, starting with that
Yeah.
in the rating system for me, starting with the Dalmore, um, I had that one at number 2 in my rankings, and that one for me was sitting. Man, it's so tough because of the rankings and the ratings. It's difficult because I'm like, depends on the time. Because I'm staring at this Cazcanes. The bottle's like haunting me. It's like, you put me in third. You really put me in third, and I'm like,
Right.
no, I didn't put you in third. Like, just let me say my ratings and like just get out of here.
Yeah.
Um, but the Dalmore, I'm gonna have to go a 7.8 on the Dalmore,
Okay. You know
only
what?
because that cigar was like, boom.
Well, I'm right there with you though. Even with that rating, I have it at an 8 flat. The Dalmore. I was like, okay, it's really good, but it leaves you wanting more for sure.
Yeah. So going down the line, next being the rare stash.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the rare stash at an 8.7. I didn't get to verbalize too much because I was filibustering a lot and letting you do your thing, which I'm happy to do. That's fine because I was just enjoying the pairing, so that's
Right.
that's fine. But like the depth that the pairing has, I loved, and that they gelled. I mean, I know I said the gel word too much probably in this episode, but they elevated this, like, compared to the Cascanes, right? The Cascanes, they gelled and they were like, "Yep, we are here."
Mm-hmm.
Here, my mic went out. But then, like, the rare stash, they both like crossed and went up. Like
Yes.
they both had that bold flavor. That one's gonna be one definitely come the time when we launch the boxes of the middleweight champ later this year, which will happen. Um, that's when I'm gonna be having this pairing a lot because I mean that is, yeah, it's just bold. Come like football season, like perfect pairing.
Absolutely, dude. I actually was right there with you. I had it at an 8.7 as well. That was a really tasty pairing. You're totally right. It was a good complimentary where they both were just like, oh, you like this part of me and this part of the whiskey and this part of the cigar? Elevated. Like I said, I like to see more of the spice, but it was still really cool how much that sweetness and that syrupy flavor was getting elevated. So I had to, give the credit where credit was due. That's why it was my number one.
Yep, absolutely. And Cascanes, it still hurts a little bit. I'm like, man, if you were matched up with different people, maybe it would be different. I don't know. That's why, like we said, these are so hard for us.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend all of these pairings, but the Cascanes for me, sitting right at 7.7, right
Okay.
behind the Dalmore. I mean, because it's just the time. I really would tie them if I didn't make fun of you for having a tie, because it's a different experience, but they
Mm-hmm.
also provide that same relaxing light experience that you're going to enjoy.
Yeah, I actually had mine also just point 0.1 off, but it was point 0.1 off of my number one, so it was 8.6. And it was just, for me, it was right there. Now, I will say, and we didn't even mention this, I think it might have been antagonistic. I think maybe the tequila, it didn't change a lot, but also I don't know tequila very well, so maybe
It
that's
didn't
just
change a lot.
why.
You're right. It didn't change a lot. Yeah,
So
you're right
I
about that.
think that's why when you're looking for a pairing, you want to see more of that play. But as a guy who doesn't know tequila very well, I was just like, this tastes really good. The cigar's tasting really good. Sweet. And so that it just worked out for my palate.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm really curious about this Lafroig thing. So you got to go ahead and just spill the beans.
That's right. So what does the word Lafroig mean? Dude, I just couldn't believe this when I first learned it. So Lafroig, that's the whole thing. Lafroig means the beautiful hollow by a broad bay. It's like a full sentence with multiple adjectives just in that one word. When I learned that, I was like, what?
I'm not gonna lie. I thought there was a chance that you were gonna say the frog.
That's what I always pictured. It sounds like frog, doesn't it?
I don't know. People watching this overseas are like, stupid Americans, you guys are idiots. Sounds like
Yeah.
frog. It must be a frog, ribbit. Anyways, no, but that honestly, you want to talk about branding? Kind of makes me want to try it. I've never had it.
Right. Isn't that like that? Maybe that's a little bit of marketing in there where, oh, it's a
Yeah.
short name with all this to unpack. Well, it's a simple whiskey with all this complexity in the surface. Maybe that's what they're going for. I
If
don't
they
know.
intended it, good job, Lefroy. If
Yeah.
I can find you, I'm probably gonna try it.
Oh, we're having it on here before we're done for sure. So,
Love it.
between now and episode 1 million, we got to try some Lefroy.
Nice. That's a lot of cigars.
That
I'm
is.
just kidding. All right, Chris. Well, man, another good episode, and everyone out there, try the Onward Dreams, please.
Absolutely. Cheers, man.
Cheers, man.